Hi, it's Martin here again. Another video on pinhole photography. If you've watched some of my previous videos about pinhole photography, I hope it's inspired you to go out and try it, because it's a very satisfying way of taking pictures. But yeah, before you actually go out and buy a pinhole camera, if you own a 4x5 camera, then give that a try before you buy one, because you can turn these quite easily into pinhole cameras. And in this video I'm going to show you two ways in which you can do that. So it's just a standard 4x5 camera, ground glass screen, bellows and a glass lens. And because we're going to turn it into a pinhole camera, we don't need to be looking or concerned about the ground glass screen, and we don't need the lens. So we'll take the lens off and I'll talk about the pinhole next. And we just left them with a hole straight through to the back of the camera. Pinhole photography is a very enjoyable way of taking pictures, and you can make pinhole cameras out of anything. It can be a shoebox, plastic film canisters, virtually anything that's light tight, and you just create a pinhole, place that in front of the box and make some sort of shutter for it, light sensitive material at the back, be it film or paper, and then just take the exposure and you will get pictures from it. But the only thing is, a lot of pictures you see from the homemade pinholes are rather poor in quality. They're very blurry and they lack any definition. So to get round that, when you actually make a pinhole, it has to be optimized to the focal length and to the actual quality of the pinhole itself. So one of the best materials to make a pinhole out of is very thin brass, because that doesn't tend to expand or contract with heat. But the next best thing is tin from the side of a drinks can, you know, like a lemonade can, a Coke can. If you cut a piece about 1.5 inch square, 1 inch square out of the tin, flatten it down, and then make a pinhole, a small hole in that tin. You have to remember that when you push the needle through, that the opposite side is going to burr. In other words, the metal's going to go outward slightly. Now that might not seem a big deal, but when you take the picture, you'll find that that will cause like shadowing on the actual picture itself. So that burring needs to be removed, and you can remove that with different grades of sandpaper, and you sand it down very gently until you can't feel with your finger any burring on the opposite side of where you push the actual pin in. And once you've done that, just make sure that it hasn't damaged the pinhole itself and that it's perfectly round. The next stage to optimizing a pinhole is to know its actual diameter. And the way you can do that is to actually take the pinhole that you've made in the tin, place it into a flatbed scanner, and then also place at the side of it a ruler, a clear plastic ruler that shows millimetre marks, and then scan them at a high resolution and bring those into, say, Photoshop. View them at 100%, and you can use Photoshop's ruler tool to measure quite accurately the diameter of the actual hole itself. And once you know the actual size of the hole, then you can calculate its f-stop and the optimum focal length for that given f-stop. And later on in the video I'm going to show you a small piece of software that'll do all the calculations for you, and you'll actually be able to print a chart out to take out with you when you go out with your camera. So let's assume that you've made the actual pinhole and you've calculated it to be a given size, and as I say, let's assume you've calculated the pinhole to be 0.44 of a millimetre in width, and you've used the software which I'm going to show you, and you've calculated that the optimum focal length for that is 110 millimetre. So we're going to need to find out on the large format camera the distance from the film plane, how far the bellows have to come out to 110mm, and the same procedure would be required for any focal length that you're using. So we're just working at 110mm. So the next thing is to do is decide how you're going to fit the actual pinhole to the front standard. Now you can cut out a piece of card that fits in there exactly and securely, and then tape the pinhole to the back of that piece of card and place it there. Or if you've got, as most people who use large format cameras will know, all lenses require a lens panel, and that's one like that. So if you've got a spare one of those, you can actually then tape the pinhole to the back, getting it dead centre if you can in the pinhole itself. I'm just doing this quickly, difficult to see. So I've got that near enough dead centre in the panel, and then place the panel into the camera. So that's got that placed into the camera. It's all secure and light tight. The next thing to do is we need to know where that pinhole's lying on the front standard. So the way that I do that, I make a mark down the side with a pencil, take out the panel, and then using a ruler measure how far back that pinhole's sitting, and looking at that, it's probably, damn it, the width of the actual panel itself. So the panel sits on the front standard flush to this plate at the back, and that's where I want to be measuring to, that area there. And the way to do that, first of all, you're best taking the bellows out of the camera. Most large format cameras you can do this. Just take the bellows out, and then getting a dark slide with a piece of blank film in it, place that into the camera itself so we can see the actual film playing now. And I'm getting a ruler, measure from the film plane to this edge here, or whatever edge you're measuring to, and then extend the bellows until it comes to 110mm. So I'm just going to touching the film. And that's exactly 110mm. So I've optimised the pinhole with the focal length. And then I'll just put the bellows back in, and it'll look like a real camera. And as I say, you'll do that with all the focal lengths that you use. And that actually means then when you go out with your 4x5 camera, obviously it's folded up, you don't want to be doing all that when you're in the field. So what I've done is this, best showing you this way, you can just see that, yeah, about there. Once that you've measured that at 110mm, so I've got the measurement from the back of there, where the pinhole is, to the film plane, and I know that that's 110mm at that setting. What I've done is I've just this part of the bed of the camera, this part doesn't move, it's just this central part that moves. I've made a mark from both sides and drawn a pencil line. I've actually done mine in with a marker pen. So as I say, it means that when I go out and I want to set, I'm using the 110mm pinhole, I just line it up with there, and I know the distance now is 110mm. Straighten the camera up, and then with the pinhole in place, I can use virtually anything for a shutter. We can use a bit of tape. That could be the shutter. And then pull the dark slide out, remove the tape, start the time. Once the time's over, you can put the tape back over, and that's how you do your exposure. Now the other way, if you don't want to go to the messing about making your own pinhole and calculating the size and everything, is you can buy ready-made pinholes like this one. Now you've probably heard of Titan cameras. I think Ilford sell them, 8x10 and 4x5. I think they make them in that size. Well, the guy that makes those for Ilford is called Mike Walker, and on his website he actually sells these. I think they call them cones, the pinhole cones, and they come in 3 different sizes. I think it's 73mm, 110 and 150mm. And you know when you buy them that the actual pinholes are optimised. They're really quality pinholes, dead round, and the shape at the front of them is that everything's been calculated correctly. So you get the pinhole with it, and then you also get a mount. It's just a lens panel with a hole cut out, and they've put this plastic holder on to hold the pinhole. Now you might have to specify the type of holder. This is a Linhof type lens plate that fits my camera. Some cameras are slightly different, but in any case, this is what it comes with, the actual lens plate, and you fix the pinhole into the camera. It only goes one way, like that. It slots in, and then you turn it like that, and it's secure. And then you place it into the camera itself, like that. Again, if it's 110mm, when you're out in the field, you know where to set the bellows extension with the registration mark you've put on. Put the lens cap on, pull your dark slide out. Let's say you've metered it, it's going to be a minute's exposure. Just remove the lens cap, and just before it comes up to time, put the lens cap back on, put the dark slide back in, and that's your exposure. So that's a quick way of doing it, and you probably will get quality images. I'll show you 2 images that I took. They're nothing special. I was just testing it, but they did turn out very good, so I was quite pleased. They are quality pinholes. As regards exposure, people have asked me this. Let's say the f-stop on this, I'm just not sure what is off the top of my head, but let's say it was I think about 214, f214. If I use my handheld light meter, it won't go down to 214. So we have to find out a way of metering where we can extrapolate the exposure time from a given exposure time to the pinhole size. So normally you'll meter at f22. You do your metering normally like you would do, probably exposing for the shadows and placing those on zone 3. And then you'd print out a chart where you've got those times for f22, but at the side of it you'll have the times for the actual pinhole size, and you carry that chart out when you go out. Take your light readings at f22 and then just read from the chart itself. Although keep in mind those charts don't compensate for reciprocity failure. You'd have to use an app like I use called a reciprocity timer. That'll give you all the times for the reciprocity of the film in use. So I'll show you that using the Pinhole Designer software. It'll give you all those calculations, and it will also you can actually print those out. I'll show you those. So basically that's how you turn your 4x5 camera into a pinhole camera. It's not rocket science, and it does work. So we'll go to the computer now, and I'll show you how the Pinhole Designer software works. Before I go into the Pinhole Designer software, I've been asked on several occasions how I actually use my 1 degree spot meter. So rather than going into a full tutorial, which would take too long with this video, I thought I'd give you a brief overview how you can use the spot meter to actually place tones using exposure. So it's just a brief introduction on how to use the actual 1 degree spot meter. One area where people get a little bit confused, I think, is in metering, and how do we meter with the scenes that we're photographing. Now there are various ways of doing that. You could use your camera, film camera with auto exposure, DSLR. That will give you a reading, and most of the time it'll be quite correct because it's just averaging the scene out. Or you could use your handheld light meter in the incident light reading mode, such as this, with the dome, and just taking a light reading that way. The only problem with those two ways of metering is that you have no datum point to work to. You don't know where the zones are lying. You don't know where your shadows or your highlights are falling. So that's where the spot meter is a much more accurate tool to use. So as an example, I'm going to use this white card, and if I take a light reading, a spot reading from this white card, and then just use that as my exposure, that white card, if I wanted it to stay pure white, the meter would meter it and it would bring it down to 18% grey, which is about zone 5 on the scale, the zone scale. And that's not what we wanted. We wanted the card to be white. Now, because we've got a datum point to work from, which is 18% grey or zone 5, going back to the white card again, if I take a spot reading again of that white card, and I'm getting say a meter reading of 1/4 of a second at f22, it's f22.5 actually. For me to turn that card to white, I'm going to have to overexpose the film by at least 5 stops. So that exposure will go from 1/4 of a second at f22 to half, 1, 2, 4, 8. So the exposure will be 8 seconds at f22 to turn that card to white. So that's why the spot meter is a much more useful tool when you get to know how to use them. If you're out with your pinhole camera, or indeed any camera really, that's got no meter, and you're using say black and white film, you would look in the scene at an area where you're just showing shadow detail and texture, and you would meter from that scene, and knowing that when you meter, the meter is going to turn that to 18% grey or zone 5. What you want to try and do is get that shadow area, that what you want to show detail in, to round about zone 3. So that would mean that when you take the meter reading from that area, you would have to underexpose the film, and that would bring the zone 5 down to zone 3. So that's just a brief explanation how the meter works. So in this part of the video, I'm going to show you how to use the Pinhole Designer software. I'll leave a link in the description to this page. Keep in mind you do need to have an accurate measurement of the pinhole diameter to use this software. So let's assume that you've got that. So the first thing to do is download the Pinhole Designer software. So you just click on this button here, and then once it's downloaded, you'll be presented with a box like this. For argument's sake, let's say you've got a pinhole diameter of, you've measured it at 0.45 of a millimetre, and then we look to the right, it's telling us the optimum focal length for that pinhole diameter would be 101.989 millimetre. So we'll call that 102 millimetre in focal length. Ignore the wavelength of light box, just leave that as it is, and it's telling us for a 0.45 millimetre diameter pinhole at a focal length of 102 millimetre, the f-stop is f227. Now on the bottom box we've got what's I call the K factor, they call it exposure factor for f22. That's for extrapolating the actual times at f22 to f227. But unless you're going to use or make your own charts and calculate them yourself, you don't need to be really concerned with that, because the software will do it for you. So we're going to move on to the exposure tab now and type in the pinhole f-stop which was f227. Again, it's repeating the exposure factor for f22. Just disregard that. And then I'd untick the reciprocity failure box. That's just going to complicate things. We can calculate the reciprocity failure times afterwards. And then simply click on calculate. And the software now is calculate the times for f22 and then the resulting time at f227. So if we took a light reading at f22 and it was a thousandth of a second, the actual resulting time at f227 would be an eighth of a second, and it goes right down to 2 minutes. So if we took a reading at 2 minutes at f22, it will be 4 hours. You'll notice in these numbers that once we come into the seconds, that it goes from 1, 2, 4, so it's missed out 3, and then from 4 to 8 it's missed out 5, 6 and 7. So in that case, if we got a meter reading, say, of 6 seconds, which is not on there, all you've got to do is read the 4 seconds and the 2 seconds. That makes up 6 seconds. Read those times. So it's 7 minutes and 4 minutes. It would be 11 minutes at 6 seconds. Another example, if we got an exposure time of 10 seconds, 10 seconds is not showing there. So what we would look at is 8 seconds and 2 seconds. That makes up 10 seconds. So it will be 8 is 14 minutes and 2 is 4 minutes. So if you got a reading of 10 seconds, it would be 18 minutes. So that's how you read from the actual chart itself. So they go from f22 to the resulting time at f227. And then once you've done that, you just click save. I'll save that on my desktop and call it a video file. And then click save. Go to the desktop. The file's there. Open it. It's going to open into Microsoft Excel. It gives you a security alert. Just ignore that. It's just that it's not been validated by Microsoft. So it's quite safe to open it. And then click open. There we have all the exposures down on the chart. So the way that I do this, I'd probably highlight the resulting times. Highlight that in, say, yellow. I'd probably do that. It's just to make it easier when you're out reading this chart, when you're out in the taking pictures. Probably turn that to an orangey colour. And then to know what the chart's for, because it doesn't tell you on this, it's 102 millimetre. Highlight that in, probably highlight that in red. And then it was F227. And then highlight that in red. So we go out with the pinhole camera, take the chart with us for the pinhole size that we're using. Take light readings like I showed you previously using the spot meter, and simply look at the F22 times. The F22 times are on the left hand side. So let's say we got a reading F22 of half a second. At F227 it would be 53 seconds. But this does not include reciprocity failure times for the film that you're using, so you'll need to calculate those. And I'd use this app if I was you to calculate those times. This is the one I use, and I find it quite accurate. It's the reciprocity timer app. I just print that out, I put it in a plastic sleeve, put it in my camera bag, and I don't have to do any complicated calculations. When I'm out taking pictures, I just want to be concentrating on the picture and have a easy chart to read from, and this just works brilliantly. So that's how the software, Pinhole Designer software works. It takes all the hard work out of calculations, and as I say, you can easily print out a sheet, exposure times, and take it with you when you go out with your pinhole camera. The only problem I see with using the pinholes from Mike Walker, because of the focal lengths, especially the 110 and the 150, at that focal length it's virtually macro. 150mm is for a pinhole camera. So trying to get the actual composition right, the field of view is so narrow that you're going to really struggle, and that applies really to the 110mm. Now I've tried to look through the actual ground glass screen under the dark cloth through the 150 to see if I could see anything to help me get a decent composition, but fortunately it's just too dark. I tried it at 110mm, and on a very bright day I can just see, but it's not easy to use. So I thought, well, there must be a better way of doing this. So I went on the internet, and I do believe it now, there is an app for everything, and I actually found an app that would help me compose with a pinhole camera, and that's called Viewfinder. I think it is, I'll just check. Viewfinder app. So I downloaded it, and it's brilliant, and not only for pinhole cameras, it'll work if you use your normal lenses up to around about 90mm on the 4x5 camera. So instead of taking all your camera gear out of your bag just to see if you've got a composition, you can view it on your phone. So this is how it works. That's viewing it now at 150mm. So that's the field of view I would get at 150mm. Now if I change it, I can go down to 110mm, and that's showing me the field of view at 110. It doesn't go down to 72mm. I think the lowest it'll go to is 90, and then the longest is 300, but we're not concerned with that. So, and how I use it on the camera itself, so I've got the camera set up, and to find a composition I just line up the camera lens, the iPhone lens, to the centre of the pinhole, and keeping the camera parallel with the front standard, I can look at the back of the camera and I can see the actual composition that I'm going to get. I mean, you could use it that way, as long as you've got the lens in line with the pinhole. So that's roughly there. So I'm somewhere about there, but that way I'm going to get a little bit of parallax error, but at certain distances that wouldn't matter. Or you could use it this way, turn the camera that way, and you could put it to the back of the camera, keeping in mind that the lens needs to run in line with the pinhole camera, the pinhole at the front. So we've got the composition there. Again, we're going to have parallax error that way, or I can use it where I get accurate composition by just placing, I don't know if you can see that, placing the lens in line with the actual pinhole, and I get a good idea looking down the side there what my composition is going to be. So that's something that's really handy, because I think really the Walker pinholes, they come in 72, 110 and 150. I think the 150 and possibly 110 might be probably designed for a 10x8 camera, but as you can see, you can use it on 4x5 cameras, and I'll show you some pictures now that show that the actual Viewfinder app works. I tested it out in my back garden, and I got really accurate results. So that's the end of the video. Once again, if you liked it, please give me a like, or better still, subscribe to my channel. And don't you love pinhole photography? Anyway, thanks for watching.